From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 7, streaming now.
Thanks for joining us at 7. I'm Amanda Starantino. More lines of dedicated voters today at early voting sites across Indiana, but things are moving quicker after wait times of up to 8 hours at some early voting sites over the weekend. The Marion County Clerk's Office has added additional voting machines at the City County Council building. Remember, you can print out a sample ballot to review at home to help speed things up. There are 8 days left to carry out your plan to vote. And if you have an absentee ballot at home and plan to return it by mail, your best bet is to put it in the mailbox right now. The Postal Service advises giving your ballot a week to make it back, and it needs to be at your county's election board by noon on November 3rd. If your ballot is in the mail, the Postal Service says beginning today, it will get special treatment along with all election mail. WRTV Stephanie Wade shows you why some voters will need to come up with backup plans and how the Postal Service is handling possible delays.
Officials recommend allowing 2 weeks to receive your absentee ballot, but with November 3rd nearing, voters are worried they're running out of time. Some telling us they've been waiting for a month to receive their ballot. It's been 3 to 4 weeks and they still don't have that. Do you know what might have happened there?
So we don't know exactly what happened. We are working closely again with the Marion County Board of Elections, the Secretary of State.
The Greater Indiana District Manager of the Postal Service tells me they are aware of issues with ballots requested around mid-September in Marion County. We spoke with 2 voters this week who requested one and have still yet to receive theirs.
A lot of it revolves around a time about mid-September. But it is an ongoing investigation, so we're looking very carefully at our processes from printing all the way to inception to identify where there may have been a potential for a gap.
Despite this issue, Christy Johnson Kennedy says they are committed to getting every single ballot to its correct location on time.
Starting Monday, we are employing extraordinary measures. We have people around the state who are looking for every single ballot.
They have staff on standby.
All hands on deck, extra trips, extra collections, whatever it takes to make sure that we get the voters' ballots home. We're taking those necessary steps.
And giving election mail priority treatment.
We are expediting them. We are absolutely giving them priority treatment. When I mentioned that we were leveraging our express mail hub, we are moving them as fast as possible. Every election, every ballot mail.
She says many people have called asking them if they can handle the volume that's coming in.
With the machinery and the employees that we have now, we are absolutely capable of handling this volume. We are not even close to exceeding our capacity.
Only requesting that people do their part and send in their absentee ballot completed as soon as possible. Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
If you don't think your ballot will make it in time, you can drop it off in person at an early voting center. If you are still waiting on your absentee ballot, you can vote early in person or on election day, but you will need to print and sign an ABS-5 form and return it to your election board. You can find all this information and everything you need to know about voting and the candidates on your ballot at WRTV.com/election2020. And taking a live look right now at the Senate floor, where senators are speaking ahead of tonight's final vote on the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Vice President Pence plans to return to D.C. tonight in case his vote is needed to break a tie. Barrett's confirmation is expected to pass, even though no Democrats are in support of the controversial move, which comes as tens of millions of Americans have already voted. ABC's Faith Abube is on Capitol Hill with the latest.
48-year-old Amy Coney Barrett is expected to be elevated from the Federal Appeals Court to the role of Associate Justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. Sunday, Senate Republicans clearing the way for the final vote on Barrett's confirmation without the support of any Democrats.
What's happening today is sad, surreal, even shocking. We are taking the place of the next president and the next Senate.
Democrats have been adamant since Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death that the winner of the November presidential election should pick her replacement on the high court, adding in 2016, Republicans did not even give Judge Merrick Garland, President Obama's pick to replace Justice Antonin Scalia, a hearing even though it was 8 months before the election. But their protests, including boycotting the Judiciary Committee vote on her nomination, did nothing to slow Barrett's confirmation. The president saying in the past he wants his nominee on the court before Election Day in case the results were contested. During the confirmation hearings, Democrats pressing Barrett to announce she would recuse herself from election-related matters if confirmed.
I certainly hope that all members of the committee have more confidence in my integrity than to think that I would allow myself to be used as a pawn to decide this election for the American people.
Barrett's confirmation would cement a 6-3 conservative majority on the court. Democrats warn that means the future of the Affordable Care Act, abortion rights, and civil rights could be at stake. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell seeming to admit that the rush to get Barrett on the court could have consequences at the ballot box.
A lot of what we've done over the last 4 years will be undone sooner or later by the next election.
And President Trump is scheduled to host an outdoor swearing-in ceremony for Judge Barrett as early as tonight, as soon as the Senate vote is over. Faith Abube, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
Lots of clouds most of the day, then it's been rain late afternoon into the evening. Not just tonight, but looking ahead this week, there's more rain on the way, and some of it may be significant. More on that when we get together in the main weather. Just want to keep updating this rolling rain total. For the month, we're up to 4.07. That's after having only 0.12 of an inch during September. We've turned it around here in October. The stream of rain is a little heavier. Sullivan, Vincennes, toward Bloomfield, Linton, and Bloomington, Ellettsville, Lake Monroe to the south side of Indy. Those showers a little bit heavier, and you could see 1/4 to 1/2 inch amounts by tomorrow morning. Most of us will see the rain taper by midnight and then slowly diminish. Temperatures there stuck in the 40s and going nowhere. There are diminishing rain chances as we work our way through the overnight hours. We'll focus on a tropical system and its potential impact for Thursday coming up.
An unfortunate milestone in the coronavirus pandemic. The United States has surpassed 225,000 deaths after hitting record daily totals of new infections on Friday and Saturday. New cases are still climbing in about 80% of states. That includes here in Indiana, where the Department of Health reported an additional 2,009 cases today. 13 additional deaths took place between the 12th and yesterday. The state is closing in on 165,000 cases since the pandemic began. The overall positivity rate is now up to 10%. And the Marion County Clerk's Office says it has not been notified that any staff members who were with Vice President Pence when he voted on Friday have tested positive for COVID. At least 5 people close to the Vice President have tested positive, including his Chief of Staff. Camila Bernal has a look at what's happening in Washington, D.C. and across the country.
The U.S. hitting its highest 7-day average of COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began.
Hospitals are filling up with COVID patients. And while it is true that there's been some improvement for the outcomes of individuals, overall, when you add up all of the sick people from COVID, enough of them are sick enough to be in a hospital, enough of them are sick enough to be in the intensive care unit.
And doctors worry things could get worse over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
But those hospitals will get fuller and fuller unless we change direction.
Meanwhile, in D.C., a new outbreak within the administration. Sources telling us at least 5 of Vice President Mike Pence's aides have tested positive for COVID-19. The vice president tested negative Monday, and a person familiar with the plan said he will continue with campaign events with precautions.
Well, hello, Minnesota!
And the White House Chief of Staff signaling a focus on treatment over control of the virus.
We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation areas.
But experts say that the virus could be controlled with various strategies, including masks.
We control infectious diseases all the time. Literally, we've never given up on a virus like this before.
I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
Trying to cheat the system while putting others at risk, the disturbing way people are trying to get around rules meant to keep air travel safe during the pandemic. But first, like many voters this year, a family is not letting the pandemic keep them from voting. It's thanks to a lesson they learned during another pandemic more than 100 years ago. This election has already been one of the most contentious in modern history, but for one family, it is their most memorable. In 1920, their matriarch cast her vote as she was battling pneumonia from the 1918 flu pandemic. As Dan Grossman shows us, it has defined a tradition in their family for the last 100 years.
My mother was the daughter of a Civil War veteran.
In Helen Merrill's household, tradition is built on reverence.
We grew up with all these stories about patriotism and the flag and honoring your country and honoring the people who served.
A respect for family values.
I'm just proud of the powerful family that I came from.
That has led this 91-year-old to instill in her children what was instilled in her so many years ago.
That all kind of meshes together with me.
In 1918, Helen's mother, Blanche, got sick during that year's flu pandemic and was bedridden in a coma. Doctors didn't expect her to make it through the night.
Her hair all fell out and she just was in bed for a long time.
But the next morning, to the doctor's surprise, her heart was still beating and it was still full of pride.
It would take Blanche more than 2 years to recover. So in 1920, when the suffrage movement led to the right for women to vote, Helen's father hitched up a wagon with a straw bed and wheeled her into town so she could come to a place and cast her vote, setting a precedent for the family for the next century.
I can't think of anyone in our family that doesn't vote.
Helen's daughter Andrea learned from a young age there are 3 constants: death, taxes, and the process we use to determine the people who make the policies for them.
It is the one way we can have a voice, and sometimes it's the only time we have a voice.
Which is why this year, on the 100th anniversary of her grandmother's triumph, Andrea and Helen head to the polls with a certain pride.
I did it to honor my mother because I think if she were here today and she could know that I could sit in my kitchen at the table and cast my ballot and not have to ride in the wagon or anything, not have to leave sick babies behind, I think she would be amazed. And I'm just so filled with gratitude that I live in this country and the great privileges we have.
In our hyper-politicized culture, these women only have one condemnation, and it is nothing to do with party or politics.
This year, more than any other year, I have felt the urgency to get my ballot turned back in.
Just a revered tradition built on their family values.
I have a slogan: if you don't vote, don't talk to me, I think. You've already lost your privilege to be critical.
I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
You're looking at the colors of potential heavy rainfall for Thursday. We'll talk about what this may amount to coming up.
People who want to travel without taking a COVID test are turning to an underground market of false documents. Many airlines require passengers to show proof of a negative test before boarding a flight. In the UK, travelers admit paying more than $150 for a falsified test. They simply scan a test into their computer, edit the document to make changes to the results and name and print it back out. Those travelers admitted using it as a last resort to make an emergency trip. Delta says it has banned more than 400 people from flying for not following its mask policy. In a new memo to employees, Delta's CEO says 460 people are on its no-fly list for refusing to comply with the company's mask requirement. Delta began requiring that passengers wear masks on flights on May 4th and says the policy is to protect the health and safety of both passengers and crew members. All major airlines now mandate that passengers wear masks in the absence of any new regulations from the federal government. Kevin?
Temperatures you may think are unacceptably cool in central Indiana now, but I just want to show you we're warmer than nearby spots. If Kansas City's nearby, that's 31. We're warmer by 4 degrees than Dallas. It's 15 degrees in Denver. They've had wind chills below 0. Our plan here the rest of the week to keep temperatures 40s tomorrow and then generally in the 50s as we go into the weekend. You can see the average high is 62 for this time of year. We'll struggle to get anywhere close to that. Specific numbers, 49 tomorrow. The chance for showers lingers into the early afternoon, especially southeast of Indianapolis. We'll jump almost 10 degrees Wednesday. That's a dry day. We'll need it because heavier rainfall potential arrives, especially southern half of the state, but I think widespread rain for all of central Indiana on Thursday. That will come with some wind gusts, 20 to 30 miles per hour, as we see remnants of Zeta, which still has some land across down in the Yucatan Peninsula, then into the Gulf of Mexico, coming close to New Orleans as it makes landfall as forecasted Category 1 storm and moving northeast from there. So that's part of the moisture source. There's another weather system that will enhance rainfall as it comes in from the northwest. The rainfall in the morning hours Thursday expands to the north and picks up in intensity a bit as we go into Thursday night and Friday morning. Just to show you the disparity, this is one forecast model, has just over 2 inches of rain for Indy, 3 inches from Bloomington and Columbus South. Another forecast model keeps that generally in the 1 to 2 inch range with less north. That will all depend on the track of the system. Tonight's rain, steady but not that heavy. We should see quarter to maybe half-inch amounts areas south of Indianapolis. Temperature tomorrow in the 40s. Dry Wednesday, we'll take it because Thursday is windy and wet. As we get to the weekend, Halloween comes with a full moon. It will be dry, pretty comfortable, 56. Then we fall back. You roll your clock back 1 hour as you drift off to sleep Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 56 degrees. A lot going on this weekend. Amanda?
Well, it's not a shock more Americans are stressed out right now between the pandemic, the election, and economic uncertainty. But it's who is feeling the most pressure and how it's impacting the long term. That has psychologists speaking out. Newsy's Lindsay Thies breaks it down.
Protests, politics, and the pandemic. They're the biggest thing stressing out the majority of us, according to a new report from the American Psychological Association.
When you have multiple stresses that are compounded, then that definitely makes it much more difficult for you to navigate, your day-to-day life.
The APA study found nearly 2 in 3 adults say the current amount of uncertainty in our nation causes them stress. Further, 3 in 5 say the number of issues America faces currently is overwhelming. Nearly 8 in 10 adults say the coronavirus pandemic is a significant source of stress in their life. And 2 in 3 adults say their stress levels have risen over the course of the pandemic. And with the election looming, more than 3 in 4 adults say the future of our nation is a significant source of stress, up from 66% of adults that said the same thing last year.
That state of uncertainty, what's going to happen next, elevates stress overall. I'm concerned about what the long-term impact is going to be, particularly for younger people.
Psychologists Newsy spoke with say how we're coping is also so important right now. They suggest things like texting your friend that you can't see in person, self-care like sleeping and staying hydrated, or even giving a shoulder massage to the person you live with.
You want to be mindful of not drinking too much caffeine and alcohol, because that is going to make your stress levels much more difficult.
Look for ways to also try to relax and to release some of the tension that we're all walking around with. That's an important way to cope as well.
And another thing they advise, which this one might sound strange coming from a news source, limiting your news intake, especially as the election nears, can be beneficial too.
I can control how much I'm exposed to it. If I'm really stressed about news about the economy, I can control how much I'm following economic feeds. Many people are very concerned about what the outcome of the election will be. If that's you, don't spend November 3rd checking the news constantly, because we're not going to have an answer immediately. Make a plan to do things that are satisfying and enjoyable to you instead.
Lindsay Thies, Newsy, Denver.
Families are turning to an oldie but a goodie to stay occupied during the pandemic. Sales of the classic board game are soaring, and toy company Hasbro is reaping the benefits. The company reported a 21% jump in gaming sales as the result of homebound people looking for ways to stay busy. However, Hasbro's overall revenue dropped 4% because of TV and film production delays. Kevin, I've definitely been playing the millennial one a few times through all of this.
Nice. I don't have the patience. That's the one thing I need in life.
That's what's great about the millennial one. It goes by faster.
Nice. It's in then. All right.